The following lecture has been deemed suitable for Type Blue and Type Green personnel of Clearance Level Alpha. Good evening, I'm Dr. Noticeri with the Department of Tactical Theology. This video serves as the first of a lecture series covering the basics of occult and thaumaturgic history for new Foundation members. Our lecture today will cover the Seventh Occult War. No, this wasn't the clash of tanks and bombers you learned in school books. That was just the surface ripple. No, the Seventh Occult War was a subterranean storm, a thaumaturgic apocalypse waged in the ether, where spells shattered reality and gods were forged from forbidden rituals. While Allied and Axis forces bled across Europe and the Pacific, elite cabals of sorcerers, psychics, and anomaly wranglers fought for the keys to rewrite magic itself. At the heart of it all, the ritual of Solomon. A ritual so profane it could birth a new demiurge, a god thing, to enslave every spark of the arcane. We're talking about the Allied Occult Initiative versus the SS Ahnenerbe Obscura Corps, with the Imperial Japanese Army's Ajama stirring chaos in the east. There is also the Soviets' GRU P scrambling to counter, and America's Pentagram organization drawing lines in the sand with blood and ectoplasm. This war didn't end with Hiroshima or Berlin's fall. It climaxed in Operation Aeon Dawn, a dawn that nearly eclipsed the world. So, listen up. Let's begin at the beginning, where the occult wars themselves were born from humanity's oldest sin, reaching for power we were never meant to have. To understand the seventh, you have to grasp the tapestry of the occult wars, the endless cycle of anomalous arms races that stretch back through the ages. The first occult war is whispered about in Sumerian clay tablets, where priest-kings of Uruk battled sky-fallen entities with cuneiform incantations, binding elder things that slithered from the voids between the stars. The second tore through the Bronze Age, Egyptian pharaohs fighting against Hittite shamans. They raised pyramids, not just as tombs, but as anchors against the unraveling of the Akashic threads. Think of an early prototype of a Scranton reality anchor. By the third, in the shadow of Rome's legions, Druidic circles clashed with Etruscan haruspices over ley lines that pulsed like veins under the Mediterranean. Fast forward through the Fourth and the Crusades, the Knights Templar against the Hashashid assassins. Think holy grails, poisoned daggers, laced with demon's blood. The Fifth Occult War involved Renaissance alchemists and inquisitors, turning lead to gold while burning reality warpers at the stake. The Sixth Occult War unfolded in the trenches of the Great War, where trench mages summoned gas golems and artillery evoked the wrath of forgotten angels. Each war escalated, anomalies proliferating like viruses, until the seventh erupted in 1939. Not with a bang, but with a whisper. A sigil etched in the snows of Poland, igniting the powder keg of the Seventh Global Occult War. It starts with the National Socialists, the Ahnenerbe, Himmler's pet project, the Ancestral Heritage Research and Teaching Society. Beneath the Thule Society's research efforts lurked the Obscura Corps, the Black Ops arm of the Schutzstaffel, a cadre of wizards and Wunderwaffen thaumaturgists who saw the war not as conquest, but as apocalypse insurance. Formed in 1935 under Heinrich Himmler's direct oversight, the Obscura Corps drew from the prime of Europe's occult underground. Exiled Rosicrucians from Prague, Catholic priests smuggled from Cuba via U-boat, even defected Golden Dawn Magi, who traded Enochian keys for Luftwaffe knowledge. Their mandate was to unearth the seven keys of Solomon, artifacts said to be forged by the Aramaic king himself. Vessels of divine geometry that could unlock the rite, led by figures such as Karl Marie Villegut, the blind seer who whispered prophecies of a coming etheric Reich, and SS Obersturmführer Wolfram Sears, the cold archivist who cataloged anomalies as the Obscura Corps' lead archiver. operating from black sites in Wewelsburg Castle. There, in salt mines retrofitted as ritual chambers, they experimented with anomalies and anomaly-adjacent horrors, such as blood eagles that drank the life from captured Allied spies, golems animated from Polish soil to guard artifact vaults. By 1938, with the Anschluss swallowing Austria's Habsburg Black Libraries, the Corps had three keys. The first was the brass vessel of Bras Luna, a humming urn that trapped souls in recursive loops. The second, the Lamen of Leviathan, a pentacle that bent probability like wet clay. And the third being the Ring of the Archangel, a gold band that compelled lesser demons to manifest as Stuka bombers with flaming eyes. Across the channel, the Allies were not asleep at the wheel. The Allied Occult Initiative, or the AOI, coalesced in 1937 from disparate threads, such as the British MI6's Section Z, a holdover from the Great War's Ghost Battalions, the American Pentagram Organization, born from Roswell and Dust Bowl Hex Wars, and the French occultists from Vichy, France. Vichy, France was, of course, the vassal state created when the National Socialists annexed France. Under the nominal command of Brigadier Reginald Reggie Thorpe, a Boer War veteran turned astral projector, the AOI was a patchwork of eccentrics. Aleister Crowley, advising on Enochian wards before his death in 1947, though rumors persist he projected his shade into early rituals. Navajo code talkers wearing sand paintings that jammed the National Socialist scrying orbs, even Siberian shamans loaned from Stalin's GRU precursors. Their goal was to neutralize the Obscura Corps before the rite could be properly invoked. The AOI's charter, drafted in a smoky London basement amid the Blitz, declared, "to preserve the veil against those who would tear it asunder for empire's sake." By 1939, as panzer divisions responded to aggression from Poland, AOI agents, codenamed Operation Veilguard, were already in the field, sabotaging Ahnenerbe digs in the Carpathians. One early skirmish, the incident at Wewel Castle, saw AOI thaumaturgists shatter a key precursor, a crystal skull that echoed with the screams of Atlantean ghosts. 12 agents were vaporized into prismatic mist, but the skull's shards seeded anomalies that the Foundation would later classify as SCP-5696, wandering echoes that still murmur invasion prophecies. As the war ignited properly in September of 1939, the Western Theater became a chessboard of shadows. The Obscura Corps, flush with Himmler's patronage, launched Operation Schwarz-Sonne, the Black Sun, targeting thaumaturgic hotspots from Stonehenge to the pyramids. In France, after the fall of Paris in June 1940, Obscura Corps wizards under Staatsdatenführer Erich von Stahl occupied Chartres Cathedral, its labyrinth and nexus for ley line convergence. There, they bound the cathedral's rose window into a scrying lens, peering into Allied command tents and unraveling troop movements with curses that induced mass hallucinations. The AOI countered with Operation Labyrinth, a joint Anglo-French incursion led by Captain Alara Voss, a Welsh seer who claimed he could taste lies on the wind. Infiltrating via being smuggled through the resistance, Voss's team unleashed a counter-ritual, the Binding of the Rose, invoking the cathedral's Marian devotions to seal the window in thorns of holy fire. The clash lasted for 3 nights, Obscura Corps evoking goetic demons that clawed through stained glass, AOI agents chanting rituals laced with alchemical mercury to poison the summons. By dawn on the 4th day, the cathedral ran red with ectoplasmic ichor. Von Stahl's left arm had been transmuted to obsidian, and the AOI claimed their first key, the Seal of the Seven Seals, a parchment that unfolded into fractal mandalas, capable of rewriting contracts between the seen and the unseen. But the Obscura Corps adapted, their faith being a blade honed by desperation for a free world. In the North African campaigns of 1941, as Rommel's Africa Corps pushed towards El Amin, the Obscura Corps embedded with the Desert Fox's lines unearthed the fourth key from a Bedouin crypt beneath the Sphinx, the Tablet of Thoth, inscribed with hieroglyphs that bent time like a Mobius strip. With it, they enacted the chrono weave, looping Allied supply lines into eternal sandstorms where trucks dissolved into scarab swarms. General Montgomery's Eighth Army, unaware of the occult undercurrent, suffered inexplicable losses, tanks vanishing mid-charge, crews aging decades in a few hours. Enter Pentagram's Delta Squadron, a cadre of Dust Bowl witches and Cajun conjurers airlifted from Texas, led by Major Harlan Hoodoo Graves, a former sharecropper who could summon boil weevils as locust plagues. They performed the rite of the scarab's reversal under a blood moon, Graves himself driving a stake of petrified lightning wood into the desert, chanting Creole invocations that unraveled the weave. This caused a backlash, opening a temporal rift that aged Rommel's panzers to rust in seconds, forcing an Axis retreat. Casualties mounted, however. Graves himself lost an eye to a chronal splinter, forever seeing futures that never came. But the Tablet of Thoth itself was secured, locked in a lead-lined ark shipped to Bletchley Park in England for decryption. This victory bought the AOI time, but whispers from intercepted Ahnenerbe memos spoke of the fifth key, the Horn of Gabriel, hidden in a Viennese cathedral. By 1942, the Eastern Theater had ignited, a maelstrom of Pacific anomalies that made the Western Front look like a parlor trick in comparison. The Imperial Japanese Army's IJMA, the Imperial Japanese Anomalous Material Exploitation Agency, had been brewing since the 1931 Manchurian incident, where Kempate interrogators discovered a Shinto shrine able to birth yokai from a component of gunpowder. Under General Hideki Tojo's shadow, IJMA was commanded by Colonel Kenjiro Hashimoto, a Shinto priest turned general who claimed descent from the great Onmyoje Abe no Seimei, said to be of yokai and kitsune lineage himself. Their arsenal was composed of anomalous objects scavenged from occupied China and the Philippines. These weapons included the Foxfire lanterns of Kyoto, which summoned kitsune illusions to sow chaos in troop lines, the bone flutes of Okinawa, piping melodies that turned American Marines into feral beasts, and the most dreaded of all, the Black Scroll of Yamato, a parchment that invoked kamikaze spirits not as metaphor, but as literal typhoon demons ripping carriers asunder. During the Battle of Midway in June of 1942, IJMA agents aboard the Akage deployed a lantern swarm, conjuring phantom fleets that lured the carrier Yorktown into an abyssal trap. The sea boiled with illusory krakens, dragging pilots to drowned halls where drowned emperors judged their souls. The Soviets at this time, ever paranoid, responded with forming the GRU-P, the Group for the Study of Paranormal Phenomena, formed in 1941 after IJMA's raid on a Siberian gulag unearthed a key fragment, the Chalice of Melchizedek, a sarkic goblet that transmuted blood to elixir, granting a form of sarkic berserker immortality. GRU-P, helmed by Colonel Ivan Petrovich, a Cossack sorcerer, was a brutal machine, with gulag shamans wielding balakala strings as whips of frost, Baba Yaga-inspired witches brewing potions from Chernobyl precursors. Their first counterstrike came at Guadalcanal, where Petrovich's Spetsnaz occultists, codename Operation Baba's Mortar, ambushed an IJMA convoy. Flutes wailed, summoning Oni that rent the jungle, but GRU-P unleashed the Chalice's curse. Japanese soldiers drinking from tainted canteens swelled into grotesque ogres, bursting from within. Hashimoto retaliated with a scroll, summoning a demon wind that hurled Soviet Sturmoviks into volcanic vents. The island eventually became a charnel ground, with vines twisting into nooses, ghosts of Ainu spirits howling for vengeance. By 1943, as Ijema pushed towards India, the Pentagram organization joined the fray. Their Pacific detachment, codenamed Star-Spangled Banshee, clashed in the Marianas. Led by Captain John Nightlight Spencer, a Virginia remote viewer who could scry positions with great accuracy, they shattered a lantern cache at Saipan, the backlash birthing SCP-1785, a flock of spectral fireflies that still guide lost ships to anomalous reefs. Meanwhile, back in Europe, the war's veins pulsed with escalating horror. The Obscura Corps, now holding 4 keys after a daring raid on the AOI's Edinburgh vault, the Lammen stolen in a glamour spell heist that left guards dancing jigs into the Firth of Forth, pushed towards the Right's threshold. Heinrich Himmler, in a frenzy, decreed Operation Valhalla's Eclipse, a continental dragnet for the remaining keys. In occupied Greece, they unearthed the 5th in a Delphic oracle cave, the Lyre of Orpheus, made of strings woven from the hair of hanged gods. The AOI's Mediterranean cell, under Greek exile Sophia Lakarsons, a Pythagorean mathematician, intercepted at Delphi. The battle was symphonic Armageddon. Lyre notes clashed with AOI harmonics from the Colossus of Rhodes, rebuilt as a golem sentry. Lasarkix sacrificed his voice, channeling a counter melody through a throat carved with lamba sigils, the resonance shattering the lyre into shards that still lure hikers to cliffside serenades. The 6th key fell in Scandinavia in 1943 as Operation Barbarossa's occult underbelly. The Obscura Corps allied with Finnish witches against the Soviet incursions, claiming the rune staff of Odin from a Lapland barrow. Carved with elder Furthrak that bled when read, it summoned storm elementals to cloak U-boats in fogs of forgetting. AOI Nordic operations, bolstered by Norwegian saboteurs and Icelandic rune mages, struck back in the Battle of Narvik's Vale. Captain Lars Stormbreaker Hagen, a Viking descendant with tattoos, led the assault. Staves clashed in a blizzard of binding spells, elementals turning on their summoners in whirlwinds of regret. Hagen claimed the staff, but not without cost, his blood freezing into a rhyme that preserved his final scream as an eternal gale. By 1944, the Obscura Corps had all 7 keys, secreted to a Thulian redoubt in the Bavarian Alps. Velisberg's Black Tower, which had been retrofitted with the Solomon Temple replica, and its walls etched with circuits of mercury and human bone. Himmler presided, while Willigut chanted the invocation's prelude. Sivers calibrated the altar with astrological sigils. The Rite of Solomon began under a wolf's moon. Keys arrayed in heptagonal formation, incense of myrrh and mandrake, choruses of bound imps keening in German. The air thickened. Reality frayed. Allied bombers overflying Munich veered into pocket dimensions, their crews emerging months later as gibbering madmen. The AOI, piecing intelligence from scrying pools in occupied Rome, mobilized for the endgame. Operation Aeon Dawn. Dawn broke on April 15, 1945, coinciding with the conventional push towards Berlin. AOI strike teams, a multinational host composed of Thorpe's Brits with Crowleyan wards, Voss's French evokers, Graves' American seers, Petrovic's Soviet berserkers, Lasarkis's Greeks, Hagen's ghosts, all converged on the Alps via paratrooper drops laced with glamour veils. The Obscura Corps met them in the Veil Between Worlds. Demonic legions from the Laman, time loops from the tablet, soul traps from the vessel, fate weavers from the lyre, and storm wraiths from the staff. Probability storms issued forth from the seal, and herald blasts from the horn shattered the mountain passes. The battle raged across strata, physical skirmishes in snow-choked ravines, where bullets transmuted to serpents. Astral duels were waged where mages hurled fireballs of condensed regret. Clashes echoed forth in the noosphere and the gestalt, with minds fracturing under psionic overloads. At the tower's heart, Heinrich Himmler intoned the rite's climax. By the keys of the wise king, we call forth the demiurge anew. The keys ignited, a vortex of gold and void sucking in the ambient thom. Nearby villages blinked out of existence, their populace compressed to archetypes in the newborn god's dream. The demiurge coalesced, a colossus of fractal eyes burning like libraries, with limbs branching into infinities, its voice a chorus of shattered universes demanding fealty. Worldwide, magic buckled. Spontaneous ignitions were reported in London, levitating dead reported in Manila, with whispers unraveling spells and hidden covens. But the AUI were able to breach the sanctum. Thorpe sacrificed his projection to bind Himmler in a circle of salt and iron. Voss channeled Marion Thorns to pierce the vortex. Graves summoned a boll-weevil plague that devoured the key's auras. Petrovich drank from his chalice, becoming a sarkic abomination of whirling claws, able to rend the Obscuricorp's wizards unaware. Lasarchus calculated the god's harmonies, his equations sung as a dirge that destabilized the form. Hagen's rhyme gale froze the lyre's strings mid-note. The demiurge roared, birthing tendrils that flayed souls, but Thorpe, channeling a final forbidden invocation from Crowley's lost grimoire, unleashed the counter-rite, Aeon's Eclipse, inverting the Solomon Circle to reflect the god's power inwards. The entity imploded, the keys shattered in a cascade of unbound arcana, the backlash a thaumaturgic EMP that silenced magic across Europe for weeks. Himmler himself in the chaos was able to escape through unknown astral means. The Obscuricorps, however, were routed, the survivors hunted by the vengeful anomalies they had unleashed. Over 300 AOI operatives were lost to the void, but the veil held. In the war's embers, as Potsdam's diplomats redrew maps, the AOI reconvened in Geneva under nascent UN auspices. On October 24, 1945, the day the charter was signed, they birthed the Global Occult Coalition, a 108-nation pact to destroy threats like the Rite, wielding anomaly as a scalpel instead of a bandage. Group P retreated into the Soviet shadows, ceding their Cold War anomalies. The American Pentagram Organization folded back into black-budget operations, birthing Area 51's deeper vaults. Ijama's remnants scattered scrolls washing ashore in Hawaii, birthing Pacific SCPs. However, this leads to the birth of the GOC, which is often seen in antagonists to our foundation. However, on many occasions, we do work together quite well, despite differing philosophies. This event marked the GOC's first decree at their founding. No demiurge shall ever rise again. That concludes our lecture. All Foundation members, this will be an ongoing series exploring various pertinent anomalies in the Department of Tactical Theology, and I'll see you in the next entry. Secure, contain, protect. This is Dr. Notacherry, signing off.